Yeah, welcome to Strickmich Club and our third cast on event in 2019. Welcome from Vancouver, Canada, Felicia Lowe.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. This is so cool. I wish I could be there with you guys in person, but this is the best we can do.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you are here by video and that we can talk about yarn and the beautiful yarn you created for us and the inspiration and everything. But what I usually do when I have the dyer here on stage, I ask them a little bit about themselves, and that's what I would like to do with you too, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so you're a dyer and you run Sweet Georgia in Vancouver. And as far as I understand, it's quite a big operation now. You have a couple of employees who help you with the logistics and everything. But you still dye yarn yourself and you develop the colorways, as far as I understand.
We do, we work as a team now. It's actually grown for many, many years. I started back in 2005. And so originally it started with me doing all of the dyeing. I dyed every single skein, and I did that for many, many, many years until it became a bottleneck. I'm always the bottleneck in the business. Just like things can't happen unless I let go of things and invite other people to come and help and join. So many, many years ago, I started to teach my staff who had come to help package the yarns and help ship the yarns. I started to teach them how to dye as well. And then we developed a dyeing team. So now we have a team of people who help do all of the production dyeing. And I don't actually do any of the production dyeing myself anymore because it's otherwise I'm the bottleneck for all sorts of other things about the business. So yeah, so that's great. We have this team. We all work very collaboratively now. So we have like a number of different ways that we do our dyeing and our dye application techniques. And everybody's kind of like has the opportunity to experiment and be creative and try. And then we put out two seasonal collections of sort of limited edition colors every year. And so with that, we all have the opportunity to contribute ideas, put together a palette. We look at it together. It's become like a very collaborative team, which I think is very cool.
Mm.
Mhm.
So, what do you enjoy most about working with yarn and colors?
I think hand dyeing is probably one of the most amazing things that you can do with yarn because it makes yarn that you cannot get in any other way. Like you can't buy it from the store, like factory dyed, commercially dyed in this way. I love that you're able to layer colors and create sort of like all of these different nuances in the color and in the hue. I've mentioned this before. My dad, he's a painter, he's a printmaker and a painter. He does oil paintings and landscape paintings. And his landscape paintings have always been sort of very simple, minimalist, water, mountain, sky, but it's not just those three colors. Like each one of those sections of the painting has multiple layers of color placed over it, and that creates more depth, more richness. It's just when you go up close, you see how many layers are included in that color. But that's kind of how I feel about dyeing as well, that you
Mm.
can do the same thing with the fiber.
So your love for colors is kind of inherited, or it's something you grew up with, more or less?
I don't really know actually, because I think my dad and I have very different color aesthetics. He
Mm.
very much likes muted, very subdued sort of colors. I like vibrant, rich, saturated jewel tones. And I think part of that reason is because when I was in university, I did a lot of competitive ballroom dancing. And so I made my own ball gowns, made my own dance costumes, and they always had to be very vibrant, rich, eye-catching colors in order to be seen on the floor in the competition. And so I think I've always been a little bit drawn towards that side of it. It's very a little bit theatrical, a little bit dramatic, but I think it's really fun. And I feel like it also is very uplifting for your mood. Like when you're surrounded by happy, fun colors, it can change how you feel about the day. So
Yeah, yeah, that's nice. Um, Yeah, you said a little bit about that already, but I would like to ask you, what's your story? How did you become a dyer? And I know it's a long story, but maybe you can just yeah, sum it up for us so we know where you come from and what your story is in the
Yeah,
dye.
I have this very circuitous path, this like long journey to coming to this fiber arts world. But I was a knitter when I was a kid, and then I did that through high school, and then I also sewed my own clothes through high school, and then I kind of stopped when I went to university because I just got super busy. And so in university, I actually studied pharmaceutical sciences. So I was a science major, and I came out with a professional degree to practice pharmacy. But I knew that when I was going through that entire program that it was not really for me. And so in the middle of my university career, I started a graphic design firm because I could. So it was the time when the internet was just starting out, and whatever I saw on the internet really captivated my imagination about what was possible. And so I wanted to do design, and I wanted to integrate it with what was happening on the internet. So that kind of became my career. And as I did that for a number of years, I worked a lot with clients. And when you're doing creative work with clients, sometimes it becomes less creative and sometimes it becomes more on the administrative side of things. So I felt like even though I was in a creative career, I was missing that opportunity to really be creative. And so that's when I started to pick up knitting again, learn how to spin, and then from spinning, learn how to dye yarn, and then somehow combined dyeing the yarn with the internet. And then this is kind of how it all happened.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. And I think it's always very interesting to hear where dyes come from and what they did before, because yarn dyeing is not a profession that has been around for so many years, and most of them have done something very creative and yeah, something interesting before that. So yeah,
Yeah.
but your story is quite unique. You are the only pharmacy major who I know who became a dyer. But it actually makes sense because you also have to be very meticulous with the measuring and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, it actually all worked up together, to have that pharmacy background, to be able to apply those skills and techniques to hand dyeing, and then also incorporated with my graphic design background. Like it all sort of came
Makes
together for me.
sense. Yeah, of course. You are currently doing a lot of instructional videos in your School of Sweet Georgia project, and maybe you could just tell us what's the motivation behind that and what you enjoy about
So absolutely. So a couple of years ago, 2017, I published a book with Interweave Press, and it's called Dyeing to Spin and Knit. And so Interweave had approached me to write a book about how I do my dyeing process. And then because I also spin and I also knit, to be able to take those materials that have been hand dyed and to use them to the best effect in knitting projects and spinning projects. And so I really enjoyed working on the book. And then after the book was published, I was invited to go and travel and teach everywhere, which was great, except for the fact that I have two very young kids at home. And so at the time, I think my youngest was like 6 months old. And I was like, I can't really leave home. I can't go anywhere to teach, even though I had done before. It was very difficult to leave home to teach. And at the same time, it also made me realize that it's often very difficult for students to travel to take classes, to go to a conference, to go to a knitting conference, to go take classes. And so that's where I started to come up with the idea of, well, why don't I just teach on video? And then everybody can access that. And I don't have to leave home, and nobody else has to leave home. And we can all do this with the power of the internet, like this, from
that.
wherever we are.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's sort of where the School of Sweet Georgia came from. And then for we've been making content for it for about 2 years now. And then again, I realized that I'm the bottleneck where I cannot make every single course on the school. So that's where I've started to bring in other instructors to teach their area of expertise, whether it's spinning or dyeing or weaving or whatever it is.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, great. Wonderful. And now let's talk about what you did for Strickmich Club. Like usually, we will now open the package and then look at the yarn, everyone, and talk about it, but I think that would be too noisy right now. So we, the two of us, we are going to just take the yarn and show it to everyone and talk about it. So this is the one yarn you made for us. Maybe you can show it too. I know you have a skein
I have
there.
one. I have a skein too.
Yeah, that's the one. So maybe you can tell us about the color and the inspiration, and then about the yarn base a little bit. Because I really love this yarn, and I was so happy about the process of the two of us um, working on this colorway, because you had this great inspiration and you sent me like a book with pictures and several different ways on how the pictures would translate onto the yarn, and it was all so professional and so creative, and I was really impressed by that. So yeah, so tell us about your inspiration and the color, please.
Yeah, so the color is called Northern Lights, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do something like this is because I don't know how many Canadian dyers you've ever had in the club before, but we kind of wanted to say, hey, we're from Canada, and we're here in the Pacific Northwest, and so we could have done all sorts of things to do with water or with mountains, and that's very local to where we happen to live right now, but I do like to dye a lot of things that are kind of like dreams or fantasies. I have quite a lot of wanderlust. Like I said, I really do love to travel and would like to get out. And so the Northern Lights is something that I have on my wish list, something that I'd like to be able to see one day, you know, to do a road trip, drive my kids, my whole family, drive up north and to be able to like go camping outside under the stars and to be able to watch the Northern Lights. It's a very romantic dream for me. I have a girlfriend who is a flight attendant, and so she flies to the Yukon from Vancouver all the time, like every weekend, and she's sending us pictures of the Northern Lights. Like she's just a every weekend sort of thing for her, but for me, it's quite a fantasy. So I wanted to include that kind of inspiration in what we were doing. And so our process was basically to source a number of images that we could work from and to sort of draw out different themes, different colors in a range that we wanted for this particular club. And so, like I mentioned before, we have like a number of different dye application techniques that we use. And so the different application techniques produce different effects, and we use them for different reasons. And so for this, because we wanted this very ethereal wash of color, kind of like a watercolor wash of color, we used a particular technique and then put the colors in that we wanted to make this kind of tealy blue purple kind of yeah, very starry night kind of feel.
Yeah, it has turned out really, really pretty and really wonderful. I'm really impressed. And the yarn is really lovely to knit with and lovely to wear. And I know that you added this yarn base to your repertoire because of us, because we needed something with this yardage, because I always want one skein which I can use to make a big shawl. And yeah, maybe you can tell us about the yarn base and why you chose it, and why you decided to add it to your lineup.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, we obviously, like a lot of the hand dyers, we do a lot of fingering weight yarns, and I sometimes I enjoy working with more of the lace weight yarns, more finer weight yarns than a fingering weight for shawl projects. It just makes such a difference with how the garment drapes, and it's just beautiful to work with. But I know that lace can often be very intimidating for a lot of people if it's too fine. And so this particular lace weight is kind of more like a heavier lace weight, easy to use, easy to hold, easy to knit with. And then the other thing is that it is made out of superwash blue-faced Leicester wool. So blue-faced Leicester is a kind of sheep breed that makes very long and glossy wool fibers. So the fiber itself is really soft, shiny. It picks up color really beautifully, and then it still has this very toothy, woolly feel to it. And then plus the fact that it's superwash makes it a little bit more easy care, less likely to felt, all these kinds of things. So when I was knitting test swatches with this, I liked it, single, knit it into lace, that's great. But also what I like is actually holding it doubled and then knitting it as a DK weight. And
Mhm.
that feels amazing. Like the
Yeah.
fabric feels beautiful. So if you had enough yardage in one or two skeins to make like a baby sweater in a DK weight held together, that would be beautiful. Or knitting it up as a lace weight shawl is also really nice. I love this base. So yes, we did. We included it. We started to produce this in I think 16, 15 or 16 colors, lighter colors, and yeah, we're adding that to our lineup of things.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, Felicia, it was so wonderful to talk to you. I will now reveal the design to our knitters here in the little ballroom in Damsdorf. I've already shown it to you, so you know. But now everyone's waiting and everyone's waiting to open up their packages, and we don't want to make them wait so much longer. So thank you so much for talking to us, for
Thank you.
being here virtually. And we are so happy to have you in the club. And we are honored to have such a big name and creative mind in Strickmich Club. And as for the process, everything went so well. I would do it again. so, so thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Martina. Thank you for inviting Sweet Georgia to be a part of this event. It's amazing. And congratulations to everybody in the club. Hope you guys enjoy your packages. Have a good time tonight.
Thanks.